Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're talking about Secret Wars. But before we get into that, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, and leave a comment. We've got a great community here, and it's all thanks to you guys. So thank you so much for being here. With all that said, let's dive in. Prologue to this one takes place in the distant reaches of the universe, far from the planet Earth. An uninhabited spiral galaxy turns, unseen by living eyes, until suddenly a group of superheroes suddenly finds themselves transported to this place, confused as to how they got here. They include Beta Ray Bill, Captain America, Captain Marvel, and this is the Monica Rambeau version, Colossus, Cyclops, Daredevil, Falcon, Hawkeye, the Incredible Hulk, the Human Torch, Iceman, Iron Man, which is the Rhodey, James Rhodes version of the character, John Redbridge, Lockheed the Dragon, Mr. Fantastic, Nightcrawler, Professor Xavier, Rogue, She-Hulk, Spider-Man, Storm, The Thing, Wasp, and Wolverine. And to their surprise, Magneto is also here. About half of those heroes are player characters, and the other half are non-player characters. So at this point, they all interact with each other, basically stating their surprise and not really knowing where they're at. Also, they're no longer wearing their street clothes like they were when they vanished from Earth. When they were teleported here, they arrived in uniform. Just then, Galactus can be seen from afar, and the heroes are shocked to see him. And just as a group of heroes were teleported here against their will, so too has this occurred with a group of villains. And the villain faction currently consists of Absorbing Man, Baron Zemo, Bulldozer, Constrictor, Doctor Doom, Doctor Octopus, Electro, the Enchantress, Hobgoblin, Kang the Conqueror, Claw, the Lizard, Molecule Man, Tile Driver, Thunderball, Ultron, and Wrecker. Just then, the spiral galaxy surrounding them is swept away. The stars are like dust on a floor being cleared off by some giant unseen hand. It is a show of power that those here have never known. Practically nothing is left of that galaxy, but those precious few pieces that remain are brought together, forming a planet. Dr. Doom sees this and is in awe. He says the power to do such a thing is inconceivable. As Doom is in awe of the insane levels of power he just witnessed, the robot known as Ultron speaks. And before I go on, by the way, I should explain something. The situation with Ultron is complicated. There was an Ultron who the Avengers fought and defeated, and his body was taken by the government and transported to Area 51 for storage and study. Around that time, the same could be said of Brainiac. And to make a long story short, that particular Brainiac merged with that particular Ultron, creating an amalgam that we call Ultroniac. But Brainiac's mind is also in his starship. And all of Brainiac's equipment runs on what we might call the Brainiac operating system or the Brainiac network. And Brainiac also has multiple drone bodies. So just because Ultroniac exists, it doesn't mean there are not also brainiacs running around out there. Similarly, while at this point in time, one might think that the classic Ultron had been destroyed. Um, this Ultron that we're seeing here in Secret Wars has been undestroyed. Particles of Ultron were brought together, recreating the famous villain without any of Brainiac's influence. And as always, if you're at all confused about anything I just said there, let me know in the comments and I'll try to clear it up, okay? But for right now, in this moment in time, Brainiac, Ultroniac, and Ultron now all coexist. So that said, the villains start talking about what they witnessed, and Ultron interrupts everyone else. And Ultron says he does not comprehend how he was resurrected, why he was resurrected, nor does he understand what he just saw of like this whole galaxy just going dark, right? So he says nothing computes in an agitated tone of voice. And then he shifts gears, no pun intended, and he says, "Insignificant. I am Ultron. My purpose is to slay that which lives. You are all living things. Ergo, Ultron must destroy you." So Ultron attacks. But his mission of eradication is cut short when Galactus just picks him up like he's an action figure and he sucks all the energy out through, like they're not touching, but all the energy goes out of Ultron's mouth through the air and over into Galactus. He just drinks up all of that energy, leaving only Ultron's empty adamantium physical body, right? Kind of like after you're done drinking a can of pop and all that's left is the can. That's basically the deal here. So just then, a white rift tears open the infinite blackness of space, and a voice can be heard. It says, "I am from beyond. Slay your enemies, and all you desire shall be yours. Nothing you dream of is impossible for me to accomplish." The various characters assembled here can sense that the Beyonder is telling the truth. So Galactus insists that the Beyonder take away his endless hunger. But as Galactus tries to enter the White Rift, he is swatted away like a gnat. The Beyonder overpowers Galactus just as easily as Galactus killed Ultron. And the rest of the characters started off all of this by thinking of Ultron as unbeatable. So all of this serves to showcase just how powerful the Beyonder really is. As everyone assembled here tries to understand all of this, the Beyonder then transports the two groups to this planet that he made, which he calls Battle World. And as soon as they arrive, the Human Torch decides the only way any of them is ever getting home is to fight the villains. And since Magneto is right here, the Human Torch attacks him. Magneto erects a force field around himself, however, then claims that he's not a villain. He says everything he's ever done was to defend his people from Homo sapiens, which in his mind includes the Human Torch. So Magneto just leaves. After he's gone, the heroes try to pick a leader. Captain America, Mr. Fantastic, and Professor Xavier are all considered, but in the end, it's Captain America that they all agree on. So, meanwhile, Doctor Doom is at the spot where Galactus landed, and the huge cosmic being is still knocked out. From here, Doom can see a massive futuristic fortress. So he enters it and finds the other villains talking about how they are going to do as the Beyonder said, so they can each get one wish granted, basically, right? So Doom calls them fools and says the smart thing to do would to be find a way to seize the powers of the Beyonder for themselves and then be able to grant their own wishes whenever they want. So Doom leaves angry that the other villains are so stupid. And he realizes the only other person who might understand is his mortal enemy, Reed Richards. So Doom finds the Doom Roller from the 1984 Secret Wars toy line. Through this whole thing, by the way, we went out of our way to try to work the toys into it because that's the whole reason this comic ever existed, was to promote that toy line, which I collected as a kid and loved, but that's neither here nor there. At any rate, so the Doom Roller sort of looks like a red shuttlecraft that rests inside of this large alien wheel. So Doom notes to himself that the Beyonder has furnished them with alien weapons and vehicles. And then he rides off through the desert-like terrain of Battleworld. Kang the Conqueror sees this and thinks that Doom is trying to switch teams. So Kang targets Doom with an enormous cannon and then opens fire. There's an explosion, and amidst all the smoke and fire, it's hard to tell if Dr. Doom was destroyed or not. So both teams go to investigate, which brings us to the main plot of this game session. As the heroes and villains come face to face, we roll initiative. Absorbing Man attacks Colossus. Baron Zemo attacks Captain America. Bulldozer attacks the Thing. Constrictor attacks Storm. Doc Ock attacks Spider-Man. Electro attacks the Hulk. Enchantress attacks Beta Ray Bill. Hobgoblin attacks Daredevil. Kang attacks Iron Man. Claw attacks Professor Xavier. The Lizard attacks She-Hulk. Pile Driver attacks Mr. Fantastic. Rogue attacks Molecule Man, stealing his powers, by the way. Thunderball attacks Wolverine. Wrecker attacks Captain Marvel. John Redbridge is teleported elsewhere, and Doctor Doom leaves. And since there are more heroes than villains, Cyclops, Falcon, Hawkeye, Human Torch, Iceman, Nightcrawler, and the Wasp all pick a hero who's having trouble with their respective opponent, and they lend a hand wherever it's needed. So as a result, the heroes win the first skirmish. Meanwhile, John Redbridge encounters a second female Beyonder who looks like a young Pam Grier. Like the male Beyonder, she's wearing an all-white outfit that looks very 70s with like a wide butterfly collar. And as we've mentioned in previous game sessions, every character named John Redbridge in our universe has an advantage on his character sheet called the Valentino effect. And the way Valentino effect reads in the TF2V book is that any female character will fall madly in love with whoever has this advantage until the duration ends. And this is always on. So since the female Beyonder has female in her name, we decided it applied. Also, I should probably point out that when we ran this game years ago, it was before Marvel retconned the exist of the Beyonder race. So her existence predated that retcon, and since our game takes place on Earth K rather than Earth 616, we just say that in our dimension, the Beyonders are a race. Anyways, so she starts putting the moves on Redbridge, and he is literally powerless to stop her. So he's going to be her plaything for a while. She creates a hot tub and then makes some candles and stuff like that. Meanwhile, Dr. Doom returns to that futuristic fortress where he examines the lifeless adamantium body of Ultron. He ponders repairing it and having it work for him. Back at the scene of the battle, the heroes won, partially because Rogue now has the powers of Molecule Man, at least for a while. The Hulk, who, by the way, has the mind of Bruce Banner now, bends some girder-like bits of steel around the villains, tying them up. And the heroes find their own futuristic fortress to use as an expansive headquarters during their stay on Battleworld. Suddenly, Ultron attacks. Since he's made of adamantium, when the superheroes attack Ultron, they do no damage. And while he distracts them, Doctor Doom teleports the villains back to their headquarters. Ultron returns shortly after that, just in time to see the villains tell Doom that they will not follow him as their leader. So Doom orders Ultron to attack them, and he does. Ultimately, the villains surrender and agree to follow Doom's leadership, so he orders Ultron to stand down. Meanwhile, at the heroes' fortress, She-Hulk and Wasp are talking about how they don't want to be here. Wasp says she retired after 20 years of hero work, but the male Beyonder teleported her here against her will. When she arrived, she was in her old costume again. Their conversation is cut short, though, when Ben Grimm turns human again for seemingly no reason. Back where Doctor Doom is at his fortress, he transforms Mary McFerrin into Titania and Marcia Rosenberg into Volcana, adding 2 more villains to that team's roster. After the storm dies down that powered the machinery that gave power to these 2 new villains, Galactus summons a massive metal space station to this galaxy. The heroes and villains can see it in the sky several million miles over the surface of Battleworld, and one of them says it's the size of a solar system. Reed Richards says it's the home of Galactus, and he must have summoned it here from the other side of the universe. There is a native race of humanoids here on Battleworld with golden skin and long white hair. They see this thing in the sky and they freak out. They yell things in their native alien language, but nobody here knows what they're saying. As they're looking at it, a new Spider-Woman enters the camp. She has long red hair and her name is Julia Carpenter. She's from a suburb of Denver, Colorado, and she was brought here by the Beyonder. They watch as Galactus uses machinery on Battleworld to build some sort of a huge gadget. As he works, he senses Doctor Doom teleport aboard Galactus's homeworld high overhead, and Galactus expels Doom from it using the power cosmic. Doom takes enough damage from the cosmic bolt that he only has 1 hit point left. So when he's back in the villain's fortress, he lays down on a bed and rests for a while. As Doom is resting, the heroes attack the villain's headquarters, where Titania knocks out She-Hulk, and Molecule Man, who has his powers back by now, damages Iron Man's armor. So the fight comes to an end after a while, and the villains kind of win this one. So the heroes fall back to their own fortress, where Reed Richards repairs and upgrades the Iron Man armor. When Rhodey takes it off, by the way, Captain Marvel sees him and flirts with him. So these two seem like they might hook up. Spider-Man's costume is ruined, and he sees Beta Ray Bill get a new cape from a room full of machines. Spider-Man asks Bill where he got the cape, and Smart Hulk tells Spider-Man that there's a machine in there that you can think into, and it will give you any sort of clothing you want. So Spidey goes in there, but to a different machine. And what he gets is the Venom symbiote. It starts off as a glossy black sphere about the size of a baseball. So Spider-Man picks it up and then it starts to cover his arm. Spidey doesn't know it's alive yet, though. He thinks it's more like a futuristic alien liquid metal costume, like a wearable T-1000. Spidey wonders why it didn't look like his old costume. Then he decides that he must have been thinking about Spider-Woman's costume. He had joked earlier about suing her for ripping him off, but now he wonders if she'll sue him for wearing something so close to what she wears. Just then, an earthquake hits, And Professor X tells everyone with his telepathy that Galactus has began to devour Battleworld. So everyone attacks Galactus. And the first thing Galactus does is fire a cosmic energy blast at Rogue, which knocks her out. Mr. Fantastic urges the villains to help the heroes, saying, like it or not, we're allies now against a common foe. So the villains who have sorcery substitute it for enchantment, which they use to boost the abilities of the heroes. And amazingly, with these higher stats, the heavy hitters annoy Galactus to the point where he decides to not devour Battleworld. But he is still hungry, so he decides to eat his own home world instead in the sky over Battleworld. So Galactus goes to it and begins the process of devouring it. But Doom uses the machinery of Battleworld, which he has augmented, and he absorbs this power rather than Galactus. Doom rises and finds that not only does his slightest whim now alter the very fabric of reality, but all of his senses and perceptions have been amplified a millionfold. He can feel atoms rubbing against each other, and he can sense through which the portal that the Beyonder is watching the events unfold on Battleworld. So Doom transforms himself so that his armor is a more high-tech and streamlined version of what he used to wear. And Doom goes to the Beyonder to challenge him. And as they do battle, Battleworld shakes, rocked by forces beyond comprehension. And when the dust clears, a Galactus-sized Doctor Doom materializes on Battleworld, saying the Beyonder is dead, and Doom is the most powerful being in existence now. Doom wills himself to shrink down to normal size, and then he takes off his mask, and now his face is flawless and perfect, and the heroes gaze upon it for the first time. Doom says that he could destroy them all with but a thought, but he won't. Now, Doom says much has changed. He usurped the Beyonder's power, and he is now all powerful. And as such, he has nothing to prove to lesser creatures. Doom says that for the first time in his life, he feels complete and serene, and his dark desires are no more. He states his plan to go to hell and bring back his mother's soul. Captain America thinks that actually sounds very human, though, and not as quote unquote evolved as Doom would lead the heroes to believe. And Captain America's right. It was a trick. So Doom flies away, and the area where the heroes were standing explodes. So the smoke clears, and Colossus is still there. His body of metal protected him from the blast. He then carries everyone to the medical area where the Beyonder's machines restore them one by one. They go to confront Doom, who gives Claw a portion of his cosmic power. Claw, in turn, creates an army of random monsters that everyone fights, while Captain America runs into Doom's inner sanctum to challenge him. Doom calls on a blast of phenomenal cosmic power, and at the last minute, the Unipower washes over Steve Rogers, transforming him into Captain Universe. When the crackle of cosmic might fades like smoke, Steve's blue and white costume can be seen. Doom is shocked that Rogers wasn't disintegrated. Doctor Doom and Captain Universe slug it out. And while that is happening in the physical world that Cap can see, he suspects that internally, Doom is fighting another battle, one to contain all that power he so recently absorbed. Doom is being ripped apart from the inside out. As the energy bursts forth from the form of Doom, the Beyonder, who is hiding within the form of Claw, comes forth and retakes that which was once his. The Beyonder transforms Doom into what he was before all of this began, scars and all. Then the Beyonder Doom, and Claw all vanish. The heroes regroup and tell Steve that the Captain Universe costume is a good look on him. Several other heroes have damaged costumes, so they go to the room where Spider-Man got the Venom symbiote. And they use a different machine than Spidey did. And Peter notices this and asks him about it. They mention that their clothing can't shapeshift like his can, and he starts to wonder why that is. Which brings us to the epilogue. Reed Richards uses the machinery here to whip up a teleportation device that uses the same type of energy the Beyonder used. The X-Men are the first to go home. They vanish in a flash of light, and everyone still on Battleworld that sees that flash is worried because it kind of looks like the X-Men were disintegrated. Reed says he thinks his machine works right, and it's the Avengers' turn to go home now. So when they ask She-Hulk to go with them, she says she's in the Fantastic Four now, which shocks Reed and Johnny. Ben Grimm explains that now that he can turn human again, he just wants a normal life, and She-Hulk can be their heavy hitter from now on. Now that the Avengers are gone, it's Spider-Man's turn. So he vanishes in a flash of light, praying that he won't be disintegrated. And a moment later, he rematerializes in Central Park, back in New York City. Onlookers are surprised to see Spider-Man in his new black costume, but he assures them that he's the same old friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and that the black costume is nothing to fear. And he, of course, is wrong. But that's a story for another day. So we enjoyed playing this one. We hope you enjoyed hearing about it. If so, as always, smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell, and leave a comment. From all of us here at the longest running superhero role-playing game on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure.